Hello, I'm Diego Mangabera, and in this episode of Mind Alchemy, I want to talk to you about some very important concepts that we work on both here at the Mind Alchemy Academy, and concepts that, in fact, throughout the history of humanity, have been lost. So it is very important that you stay until the end to understand how this concept of alchemy of the mind can help you. When we talk about the mind, we think a lot about what we do on a daily basis. I invite you to visit our website, which has more information about this, which is basically www.diegomangabeira.com.br. There you will be able to access many contents from our list of emails, which is a VIP list. We have our audio and video on YouTube, and also our courses that help people to better understand themselves and to connect spiritually. When we talk about the mind, we have to understand that the M of this mind is a capital M. It all started, in fact, when we think about the first civilizations that we have records of. So we take Atlantis, we take Lemuria, we take the continent of Mu, we take what we know as Sumeria, which is in the Mesopotamian region, which today is Iraq. We have a civilization that in fact had a very strong ascendancy in relation to this concept of mind, and throughout the history of humanity, we have lost this concept, which was the Egyptian civilization. Egypt, even at the time, was not called Egypt. The Greeks gave this name to Egypt, which means Almu Egyptum, which is beyond the Aegean Sea. And the Aegean Sea is basically the coast of the Greek cities, where Greece is today. The Aegean Sea is actually one of the most famous seas. If you want to take a cruise, or even if you want to get to know Greece better, you will go through the Aegean Sea. And when we think about Egypt, it was known at the time as Kemet, which was an ancient civilization, very accelerated in relation to all processes, technologically very advanced. We even have several historical portraits, books, and official documents that we even lost in relation to the fire of the Library of Alexandria. We have several records, still recovered, commenting on this concept of mind. And the concept of mind is with a capital M. The civilization that we know today as Egypt, which was called Kemet, did not divide. We did not have the subdivision between body, mind, and spirit. We work a lot on this within the academy. When we think about body, mind, and spirit, it is one thing. There is no division. What happened throughout humanity, especially after the Greeks, and even today, especially here in the West, we had a gigantic loss in relation to this understanding. So much so that when I say the word mind, in your head comes the word brain. In Western civilization, we understand a lot of that, but we take more the East. In the countries of Asia, for example, or even the Middle East, this concept is even a little more rooted. We had a little loss, but we still have a dissonance of what it could be. In psychology, we can call it cognitive dissonance. When we take this concept of mind, which is so important, of this uniqueness, of this universality in relation to things, you realize that in your life today, the probability of your facing problems, facing financial problems, physical problems, or problems in relation to your work, including the lack of work, are very big. Today we live in an increasingly technologically advanced world. We have access to resources. The poverty and wealth standard is very relative. After all, many people, we work with wealth inside the academy. Many people actually have access to a cell phone in a favela or even in a poorer neighborhood. Meanwhile, there are people who live in mansions or even in closed condominiums who suffer from depression. So we have what? Several types of dissonances. Today we cannot say that in fact one person is like this or like that. In fact, we could never talk like that, but people usually compare themselves to others and start to make certain very erroneous records as if they were actually owners of the truth. And we had these concepts rooted in Egyptian civilization. So at this very moment, I invite you to rethink how you have faced your mind. We talk a lot about the heart because in the time of Egypt, we talked a lot about it. We talked about this correspondence that our heart had with us. After all, the heart is not just a heartbeat organ. Quite the opposite. The heart is actually the essence. It is the origin of our being. So much so that in several civilizations, even in the Arab civilization, the word kalb has to do with this breath of life. When we go to the Vedic texts from 50,000 years before Christ, again, you have the word atman, which has to do with a breath of life, which portrays the part of the heart. And when we think about the word spirituality, which is very well known in the West and is even poorly interpreted in a way that in fact spirituality becomes mediunity or even talking to spirits, this is completely wrong because spirituality comes from spirits, which actually comes from inspirer, which means breathing. So, at this exact moment, I firmly believe that you may be living the world of other people or even of other interpretations. and especially the world that is not actually being more and more consistent with what it should actually be. We live in a moment of transition of eras, where we are invited mainly to be better, to be different. After all, the movement of love, not with love that is your love or my love, but love with a capital A, love that is actually timeless. It is apolitical. It has nothing to do with the economy. It has to do with the force of the universe. It has to do with the force of everything we are. It affects directly the world, the way we can be in our lives. And this existence, this being, this awakening, this force that you may be a little biased, maybe a little hurt, or may even be sleeping at this exact moment. So, the goal of this podcast today is to make you start to understand better how your own essence, how your own being, your ego, you can even put your hand on your heart at this exact moment, is acting at this exact moment like your flower, or even if you are completely distant from your ego. We are invited today, regardless of what you understand about God, and I respect a lot. I follow many religions. I am always invited to know new religions. I admire myself in understanding a little more about civilization, and I always know that in fact, the greatest master is the one who knows nothing. We realize that in several religions, the observance of love, the precepts of charity, or even the existence of our ego are the main conditions for us to be able to live a balanced, harmonious life in such a way that we respect each other as brothers, as sisters, even if we are not blood brothers, and at the same time we can do more than what is proposed to us, regardless of where you live, regardless of where you work, or regardless, by the way, of what you may be facing at this exact moment, where in fact it only seems that there are barriers, there are only challenges, and there are no answers or smarter questions that you can ask yourself. So, the invitation I make to you today is to start to reflect on this concept of mind, which we will talk about in the next episodes. I certainly invite you to enter the Academy because here in the Academy we have much more in-depth concepts, and here in this podcast is another invitation for you, certainly, to connect with our message, and more than that, I am also a spokesperson for the Mind Alchemy Academy, for the world, for you, for the world, and for all people. After all, besides the Portuguese language, we offer services in Spanish at this exact moment and English, so it is with great joy that I open this podcast here of the Mind Alchemy, and I really want you to follow us from now on. It will be an honor to have you, and especially share with more people, like, and comment on social networks. Certainly, we will be able to talk much more from now on, okay? Have an excellent day with a lot of light and prosperity, and a big hug